We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to jump right in. Angela, do you have any questions regarding attendance?
No.
Next up is the agenda approval. There's some additions.
I had 2 additions. The food service report. Sarah was not feeling well, so I told her we could leave her report as a written report. And then there was an addition for a community education report that was added today. That's it for changes.
All right, so we have an agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is open forum. The rules for open forum. There's 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take more than a total of 15 minutes. No complaints about individual staff members, about students, or about other persons are permitted. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in open forum. Did anybody say it?
Nope.
Does anybody wish to speak at open forum? Right, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything added to our consent agenda?
Nope.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Before we do that, I was gonna ask about the insurances and the compliance, so you haven't listed out what all that entails, but can you kind of give some scope?
So MDE asks first for our harassment and violence policy. So we just updated that last month. So I upload that. They ask how many of our employees received mandated reporting, bloodborne pathogens, those trainings. And then they ask who the Title IX rep is, 504 rep, and human rights officer, which is me. So that's what I have to submit to MDE.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is bills. If you have questions on the bills, please state the page number and the bill number. Are there any questions on the bills?
I just had one, but I already asked the city of Hinckley. We still have the water. You know, for the church.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Keith yet, so I'll find that out. It was about a $20
Yep.
bill. So I'll find out why we have the water. In my opinion, I don't think we need it. If there's some reason I'm not thinking of.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Would there be an issue with that if it, like, the building gets too cold?
I wonder if that was probably my only wonderment is if we have to have it on.
Pulled up top, not below.
It is now,
Oh, there's sprinklers.
I
Yeah, I
believe.
think there is on the main.
Maybe that's why it has to be on.
Okay.
In case
I didn't. Yeah. you can just-
I'll double check.
If there's no further questions, I'm looking for a motion to pay the bills.
I'll move that.
A second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is Mr. Masterson.
You can see upcoming meetings for both myself and then the scheduled board committee meetings at this time. Next month, we'll do the official sign up for the Christmas breakfast. Again, it's being held Friday, December 20th. We'll start at 7 a.m. Typically, board comes in and admin comes in and helps cook and get things ready. We'll have that list ready to figure out who can bring what, or if you'd just like to donate, that works too. So I'll bring that to our November meeting. The Halloween party that the Lions always put on will be at the community center again this year. Last year was the first time at the community center. It was nice not having to move all their props from the community center to Hinckley Elementary and back. So they will be back at the community center this year. I gave an update on just my goals and kind of things that I've been working on since the start of the school year. If board members have questions on any of that, I will keep updating this probably quarterly throughout the school year, so you can kind of see things, at least from my chair, that I'm working on towards my goals. And then there's two ones I'd like, we can discuss any of these, but two that I'd like to have discussion on. One, all the board members did receive an email probably 3 or so weeks ago from a community member requesting to provide transportation, and in that email it was specifically for wrestling and boys hockey in Pine City. Doing a little bit of research, we have not provided transportation, at least in my 14 years here. I did reach out to the previous superintendent. When he was principal, we did provide transportation, but families paid the driver's salary or wage and gas. What we used to co-op hockey with Mora. So, and that was in his years of principal, so we're looking at 15 to 20 years ago. Does the board have interest in learning more or looking into this? We have other co-op sports as well. We have girls hockey in Moose Lake. We have gymnastics also in Rush City. But I will state this, we have lost, or at least had parents tell us that are going to leave our district because of transportation for sports in Pine City. It is a cost. I haven't done the research on the cost, but I wanted to see what the board, if there was interest, and how you'd like to direct me to get those answers.
I think it's something that we should look at. I guess I don't understand, I guess, why we wouldn't, because it is like a sport that's offered through the school, and just because we have to co-op with a different school, and I wouldn't want to lose kids because of it.
Do they pay the sports fee to us?
They pay the sports fee to us.
I would like to at least know what the cost is to have discussion.
And how many students we're talking?
Yeah, if they're taking like a type 3 vehicle, a bus.
Are you thinking just for wrestling and boys hockey, or all of them?
I think we'd
Well, I don't think you can pick and choose.
have to do all of them, I would think. Because what would we be looking at? Hockey, wrestling, gymnastics?
But couldn't the boys hockey and wrestling go together?
I would assume, my only
They could go
wonder,
together?
and I was a basketball parent, so, but I've heard hockey, depending on the age level, doesn't always practice right after school, depending when they can get ice time. I don't know if that affects the
Even
age
at
level.
7th and 8th grade?
That's the part I don't know, if that's 7th and 8th grade or just 9 through 12, that I don't know. But
I think before making a decision, we should at least know the cost.
I agree.
And then maybe if you had an idea how many people or students we are leaving to another district.
because I know of 2 that happened this year, they went to Mora for wrestling. A couple others had said they were, but they're still in the district, but maybe their son or daughter isn't old enough yet. It has been a conversation that's come up a little bit more since this summer. I will do that research and keep you guys informed. The other one is our junior senior trip. So past practice, when we have spring break, we've tried to do the junior senior trip during spring break just to keep kids in school longer. But both staff and student feedback is they may have family plans and don't want to give that up, obviously, during spring break. We did look to see what the interest would be in the summer. There wasn't a lot more interest of moving it in June. Plus, there's already a Spanish trip in June. We could schedule them differently, but a request came in with the board support having the trip the week after spring break. So If we went the week before, it could be playoff season. We have Wolf Ridge. We have some other district things going on the week before our spring break still. So the request was, and we've done this before when we've done the trip during the school year with the board, even though we have a spring break, be willing to support the junior senior trip being the week after spring break. I think we'd get more staff interested. And students have said that we'd maybe get more students who are interested in going.
That's what I've heard, is that some are already going on family vacations.
Would we meet our state requirements by letting them off a week?
It counts as a school day because it's a school
does.
field trip. So yeah, that wouldn't impact. We'd have to find a couple subs for the staff who would go, but the students, that counts as a school day.
I would say one time.
I think it's 4.
Yeah, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
So they've missed most of that next week, but we have done that obviously in the years we don't have.
And there's a lot of learning happening on that. I feel like it's, so I guess I would be in favor of that if there was more interest in.
Yes, Mr. Lattimore?
The end of Q3 would be that next Tuesday, so it would be right up against the end of quarter.
The Tuesday they leave, or the Tuesday
when
they come back?
So they miss like that last full week of
Week
the
of
quarter.
Hmm.
Just to give you some more
Or
information.
and finals happen then.
It's Q3, so.
Some
Oh,
classes,
sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
some. But if we go into April now, we're gonna definitely run into spring sports.
Mhm.
And again, if we go fast forward in March, we're still in winter sports. And the weather may not be as warm in Washington DC. We're already possibly hitting snow season. At least the year I went, we got snow.
I guess I like the idea until Mr. Lattimore said that it was maybe 2 days before the end of Q3, unless the consensus with you all is it might be a big deal. I don't know.
Kids can get advanced makeup now. Do all kids do their advanced makeup? Not always, but
What do they make?
You know how many individuals it may be affecting, like students that may or may not be interested?
They have a list.
Joe, do you remember how many? I thought Mandy told me that if it was spring break, there was around 30 who had signed up, but there were, last year or 2 years ago, I think we had closer to 50.
We had 50.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many more than that 30. The staff part's also been the hard part. I mean, at this point, I would probably have to assign it to both staff members because people don't want to give up their spring break, which I can do, but trying to be sensitive at the same point to family schedules and things like that.
Can it be over the weekend or part of the weekend? Or-
We can look at the weekend. Sometimes the cost a little bit more for flying.
It is though, we didn't come back till Saturday night.
I mean,
Yeah.
Saturday's usually the cheapest.
So if they did a Wednesday to Sunday,
We could try to do just part of the week or Saturday even to Tuesday or.
so that would still be part of spring break if you did Saturday. And
I will we will make that decision. That's what I'm likely gonna go with unless we run into some more conflicts. Last week of March. Okay. That's all I have this month in my report unless there are specific questions.
does anybody have any questions?
I guess we'll be looking at airfare too.
Man,
A lot to do.
yeah, I mean, we'll look and see, we'll try to find the cheapest trip we can find. Spring break time is always more people tend to travel in that month. Maybe the last week of the month is a little cheaper because spring breaks are usually over, but we'll look. If it's gonna be way more expensive, we won't do that, but if the prices come down, we'll look at that, or prices at least stay the same. We'll do that. Okay, I'll keep you guys updated.
Thank you, Mr. Masterson. Next up is Mr. Lattimore.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So my report here for this month is just going through our high school enrollment as of 10/1, and kind of a historical look at what it looked like for the last 3 years as we go through this time right now. So we're down a little bit at the high school, about the same at the ELC. They are taking students at the ELC, Empower Learning Center, about 1 a week. So continuing to go through that, and then our transition has had a big boost this year as well. So just to give you some ideas of where we're at for our high school enrollment currently. Class sizes, I have that link in there for you to look at. The link there just kind of shows our class sizes, what we have. What I did is I went through, and just to give you an idea of what our class sizes look like, I went through our core classes, basically those that meet that aren't study halls, and we have about 18 in a grade in a class. If you look at the overall, it's about 11.4, and that includes our special education classes and study hall stuff like that. So just to give you an idea of where we're sitting in terms of class sizes. We have started our conferences. Tonight's the last night of it. One of the things that the conference committee decided before I got here is that they wanted to try something different. So we kind of did a hybrid approach where on Wednesday last week we did phone calls out. So teachers were to call parents at homes to get some ideas, good, bad, indifferent, whatever that might look like, to get out and reach parents, guardians. Saw some unique things going on. Our 7th grade group, they all got together in one classroom and they just made calls all together to get through as many as they could. So that was a nice approach that our 7th grade team went with through that. Tonight was back in person. When I had heard we'd had about 30 parents come in, and that was at about 5:15-ish. So we're still trying to look at ways to get interest in our high school conferences. We'll probably try something different in the spring conference as well, where we got some ideas about how we might be able to do that using Synergy to sign up conferences and stuff like that. So more to come on that as we get closer to that one. But we are just trying to find ways to get in participation for this. So, and then just some of the things that we've had since our last one. Rachel's Challenge was here on October 3rd. That was participation with all of our 10th graders. We had a good turnout of 10th graders and with our teachers and some support staff. We're able to be part of it as well. Hearing great things about a very productive day for our sophomores. Homecoming week was the last week of September. We had pretty much activities every day. Student engagement was great, and dress-up days were well represented by both staff and students. Mr. Sorum again taking the championship for best dressed teacher for the week, so he really gets into it. We did have, I did put student board members on here for updates, but unfortunately, Nyla is at a celebration for Indigenous Peoples Day, so she was not able to attend this evening. And Lainey is in Barnum with the volleyball team, so they were not able to attend today. And then just some of my upcoming schedule as we have going forward here. November 1st, we'll have our teacher workshop where we have Scott Irwin coming back, so that'll be exciting to see. We've been able to see a lot of the stuff that we learned in August being used, and we'll continue to make sure that we are using those tools that we were given that day and get some more tools here on that November 1st, Friday. So, any questions for me?
All right, thank you, Mr. Lattimore.
Thank you.
Next up is our elementary principal report, which is written only. Does anybody have any questions for Brian to bring back to Bonnie regarding her report? were no questions. Next up is food service report, which is also written. Does anybody have any questions for Brian, or for Sarah to bring? For Brian to bring to Sarah? Great, then we will move on to counseling services. Ms. Schulberg is here.
At Hinckley Elementary for social and emotional learning, have the curriculum of Be Good People. Looking at mental health services, Brittany from TSA, who is usually working out of the high school, she comes over to the elementary to see sixth grade student. Day treatment through TSA, we currently, the report reads 0, but we have one that's possibly that we're looking into helping navigate the waters for them to see if they are a candidate for the program. With Rochelle from Nystrom and Associates, at the time of this report, she had 23 on her caseload. The last time I had asked her, I think she's at about 32. And that's between Hinckley Elementary and the Finlayson School. Portage Health through the Mille Lacs Band with Michael Myers and Mariah. You're currently serving 7 students. Love the Journey is no longer in our school, but accepting referrals for outpatients along with Canvas Health and utilizing the mobile crisis services. We haven't used them yet this year. The Safety Patrol program, we have 85 students that are participating in that program between 4th and 6th grade. I'm working on getting lunch bunch groups going as soon as those 85 safety patrols are getting trained up in these last couple of weeks. And then our attendance team is working very hard and staying current with all of our reports and sending our letters and making daily contacts to families. So I believe that we are in a good place with, and I see a huge improvement, honestly, with having a lunch, or not lunch bunch, an attendance team. We just have had letters that are going out, but just over the years, it's a lot less than what we had in the past. So I think having that attendance team is really helpful. And that's all that I have for the elementary group.
Sorry, does anybody have any questions for Corinne? Thank you, Corinne. We will move on to community education.
This one, I'm not giving my regular report tonight. This is actually just a request for a rate change on our pool rental. And I apologize for this slipping in at the last minute. We did meet last week as an advisory group. Currently, just to give you a review, our pool rental for groups under 30 swimmers, we charge $75. That's been in place for a long time. Our current cost, the current cost to the district for pool rentals under 30 swimmers is $87. So we're actually losing money on every rental. And that's due to, which is well-deserved, the increase in our lifeguard pay that is just, continued to be somewhat competitive. We're very thankful for the increases, but still can be a challenge for getting lifeguards. So we're making actually a request for groups with under 30 swimmers to increase it from $75 to $100. That would give us like a $13 profit. And then for groups with 30 and above, we charge $100. The current cost to the district is $3. We would like to request a change for that. Groups of 30 or above to $135. And we'd like to have that effective immediately if possible. And I think it needs board action.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the price increase?
It still seems reasonable. That's $3 a kid or $3.50 a kid. That's,
For 2 hours.
yeah.
They're there swimming, so that's what our expectation.
If there are no other questions, then I'm looking for a motion to raise the pool rent price.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Next up is board committees. Does anybody wish to present from their committee? I guess I can start. We have teaching and learning. Sounds like our Amplify program is going fantastic. We're in year three. Social studies, they are piloting a new program. Everybody has seen that website. For that link to.
It was in what Jonathan shared with you all last month.
On the page.
Could you make it accessible, like just off the website or Facebook?
The committee kind of thought, let's wait, let's have people ask. So there wasn't a lot of feedback at that committee feedback's the wrong word, a lot of thought to want to put that out there. But I certainly can, if the board would like me to, you guys can overrule that committee, but the thought was teachers or Joe we're not getting complaints, but if the board would like that put out, we can certainly do that. It was that, remember in Jonathan's report that he had a reviewer, you could log in and review the social studies curriculum and standards, and there was a login and a password that came with it.
So my thought was just simply for the transparency for the community, that it would be helpful to just have it out there.
But I think we did decide it is out there because it was in our last meeting. Like
It's out there, but you'd have to know to look in Jonathan's report to go find it. I mean, it is out there, it is on the website, it is, but if you didn't know who specifically, you probably would find it.
Doesn't bother me either way. I think that if you want it, you're gonna call and get it. If you put it on there, I don't.
Yeah, I just think of, like, there's probably a lot of people that they don't know it exists.
Probably don't,
They
yeah.
haven't heard about it, so,
Their kids aren't talking about it, or
yeah, so it doesn't hurt anything to
I can put it up there.
have it out there.
And maybe if they see it, it's not a phone call to the admin, to the teachers.
They can just take a look
They
at it.
can read it for themselves.
I'll get that up there.
What else? For math, they're still doing bridges. And then at the high school level, bridges go right into CPM. We talked a little bit about credit recovery, but we've already discussed that here a few months ago. And the only thing I wrote down maybe that was a little bit of a struggle, it seems like, is our ITV and getting the hours.
Yeah, when ITVs run across 18 districts and you're trying, the bell schedules don't match. So that's always been an issue, is if someone's taking our Spanish and they're in Graham, but their first hour starts at 8:20 and their first hour starts at 8:25. So we always have that and trying to work out those logistics. And I know, Joe, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I reached out to Mark Johnson because there's some things that we would like to do next year with our schedule to rearrange it. So just to start reaching out to them to see what's gonna make the best sense, so we can make it as seamless as possible. So we are starting that process to try and see how we can streamline this a little better, because there are some things that, well, at least I would like to see changed with the schedule next year that you'll see more as we move on, so.
Great. Would anybody else like to report on their committee?
I will, a couple of us attended the SCRED Legislative Forum on the 3rd. It was my first time attending. I think it was a good, opportunity for SCRED to kind of showcase to the legislators kind of what they do and needs that they're seeing. They highlighted certain people for awards. It was just nice to be able to learn and listen about different things going on. And then I was approached by a parent group, that would like to revamp the booster club. And the thought right now would be to kind of start with like football, and not to make it just high school, but also youth, to get our youth programs like up and running, like at the younger level, so that when our kids get to 7th grade, you know, kids are maybe more likely gonna stick with it or and have some of the basic skills. And football is just chosen first because that's the group of parents that's really like talking about it right now. So you'll probably see some things coming out about that. I don't think that they're maybe wanting to call it the Booster Club, just give it a whole different branding and a whole different name. We had one of the football coaches was there, one of the youth football coaches was there, and it was just really like, thought it was just a good meeting. So, yeah, just trying to get our youth more involved at a younger age, and then the hope is that other sports would see that, and then we could maybe get more parents. So involve like the parents to come in and like maybe take some of that on and build better teamwork within the teams, get our varsity players, you know, involved with the youth and doing some coaching and just some things like that. So just wanted to make you guys aware that you may see things come up with that. So.
Great.
We had community ed, which, you know, we talked a lot about the pool, also the senior dinner, and trying to come up with a way to get more students and parents involved in that. Getting a better turnout. We're still working on, because we've only had half the
The
last
numbers have
few
gone down.
years. So
The numbers have gone down.
trying to figure
So
out.
the participants, not people helping or.
No,
No.
just like
Participants.
the graduates and everything.
Only half?
It's
Roughly.
really gone down. So we're trying to get the word out as to what it is. It's not just for scholarship.
So we're thinking about doing a survey, surveying juniors and seniors, seeing what they would want. We did that a number of years ago. Just looking to make sure that all students feel included. You know, we give out the scholarships that night. If you're not getting a scholarship and you haven't applied for a scholarship, you still feel welcome to come in. We want to make sure students do feel welcome to come.
So just trying to figure that out. And then PD, it was just kind of having the workshop week and and Joe Beckman.
Yep.
Which a couple of you were listening to speak to.
Great.
I was just gonna say the ECMEC meeting was just about technology and then securities, you know, food and security.
Thank you. Next up is communications.
None.
The only thing I want to say about communications is I do get this. I don't know if you guys get it. But we also, I think, get a digital copy too, usually to our emails. And there's some good articles in here. Two of them that caught my eye was Minnesota enrollment, student enrollment trends. And second one was the state of principalship, and what principals are saying in the survey, and 5 key takeaways. So I did give it to Brian, or I had told Brian, and he was gonna look into it. But anyways, if you guys get it or don't, I think they're good articles to look at too, and I like that it's Minnesota. It's not like region or all of the United States, so.
I do believe that comes electronically in your MSBA stuff too.
I'm not sure why I did it paper, but. Next up is budget calendar.
Oh, good segue, Jody, with talking about enrollment. The first one, you can see where our October 1 enrollment is as we compare to years past. District-wide, we're at 871. The budget was built for 940. has continued to call some parents. The common themes are still behaviors or moving out of the district. I would anticipate, I think these numbers are coming either next month or the month after. We've seen a lot more go into homeschool as well in the last few weeks. And that was one of the things statewide that people are also reporting is homeschool numbers do seem to be going up. But obviously being at 871 when we built the budget for 940 puts us in a little bit of situation as we head into next year. You will see the audit as we head into December. So we'll know how we did last year. And then that will help start setting what we need to do to balance our budget if likely, it will be likely we'll need to balance based on our drop in enrollment. And then we'll see what the legislation does as this is a budget year for the state. So Mr. Lattimore and Ms. Scullard both reported their class sizes. We'll talk a little bit more in detail on a few agenda items, but one of the things that are not in my levy report further down is currently as of, well, this was typed last Wednesday, the maximum levy, you can see what that is. As of that day, it is if the board chooses to levy the max in December, it would be a decrease of about 4.6% for what was approved last year. So even if the board does choose to levy the max, it would still be a reduction for our taxpayers. But Ehlers and I were still going through that. A lot did change in October. One of the specifics we're looking at is when we opened our brand new gymnasium, we have a lease option for that. We're researching the very first year it opened. We maybe didn't get the lease in that year, so we might get to catch up this year. It would still have our maximum levy be lower than last year. But we're looking at, we want to be responsible to our taxpayers, but also make sure we're getting the money from the state that we should have. So Ehlers and I are researching that, and I'll be able to update that between now and December for sure. But that's one of the big ones we're looking at is that gym lease levy that we've talked about for a few years. But otherwise, I have more information when we get to the levy a little bit further down.
Is there any way we can get a breakdown as to, is it a certain grade that we're losing students at more so than another? Or, like, we're losing them in preschool.
Yeah.
And kindergarten.
Yep. You mean at the high school level?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can break it down by grade. I
mean, compared to like previous years, is there an age that they get into 7th grade and we're losing them? Or
I would, Jennifer, we can run that. We can run, like I run the total numbers. We can run it by grade level too. So I can break that down so we can see what last year by grade level looked like compared to, last year's first grader. Now what does second grade look like? I'll pull that a little different for you so you can see that what grade level pockets might be. Obviously our youngest learners, we're seeing that just in Ms. Scullard's report, but
right.
I can do that district wide as well.
But you should be able to compare to the census.
Yeah, and compare it to that'd be a good idea too, and compare it to the census.
When do we get the homeschool?
I thought it was November or December. Yeah, it's still coming. Yes.
Are our empowered students Hinckley-Finlayson only, or do we have some open enroll into?
I think most are Hinckley-Finlayson. I guess I haven't broke the numbers down unless you know how many.
Most of them are like, our ELC is a lot of our high school students that go that route.
And I know we had talked about the number and the number being higher than that with the 2 teachers.
They're adding.
But if we lose kids at the high school, they go to.
Just a wash.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean, as far as funding, it's a wash.
Why are we no longer getting students from other districts? Are they starting their own?
A lot of schools have them now. I don't know if our waiting list is just such, so we have a waiting list and maybe the top part of that waiting list is Hinckley-Finlayson kids. And then it kind of depends on how fast they get through their credits.
But there's not a waiting list right now, is there?
I
Because
believe
They do have there's a waiting list. Sorry.
No, go for it.
There's a waiting list. They're trying to take on about 1 per week. So
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're still trying to take at least one in per week, so
Okay.
I'll be over there to watch an intake meeting, within the next couple weeks.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yep.
Any more questions? Next up, we have 11 policies that need to be approved.
These are all those, this is the last time we have 11 at a time. These are still coming out of the language changes out of the legislation. It did highlight each of them, what changed, but are there any specific questions? Or do you want me to go through each of the 11? What the changes were?
Did you have them wrote down?
I do, at least what the state said. So 40, that's false. So equal opportunity employment, the change was, basically, they added some language that it's for all staff, for all school district employees was the biggest change, was right under purpose. Disability non-discrimination 402, the biggest, there was no change. This was just one we had not updated in a while, so that there was no state changes in this one. 403 discipline suspension and dismissal. The changes were more going through the procedures that admit how to administer the policy. And they just added a couple, they added the word when, was their biggest language change on those. Employment background checks, there was no major state changes. This is one we just hadn't updated in a while. So we're just getting up to date on our background checks. Graduation requirements. This kind of defined, they changed some of the definitions or clarified some of the definitions and then updated the graduation requirements. And then how to more for Joe and Katie Hartle, how to follow through on those requirements. But with the new social studies requirements and things like that, they're just updating the policy to match what the new standards and requirements are. School district system of accountability. The changes were really taking out the world's best workforce and now calling it the comprehensive achievement and civic readiness. So those were the big change in policy 616. 620, credit for learning, talked about PSEO dates and added the weighted grade provision. We were ahead of the curve for weighted grades. If you remember, we changed that last year to have PSEO grades match how we weight our in-class grades, in our typical college in the schools grade. 624, online instruction. We don't currently have online. This was more what we call distance learning. The state asked the schools to put this in place last year. We don't have an online learning plan. This is different than what our Empower students do. This would be, like if you think back to distance learning in COVID, but there was just some language changes in that. Transportation of public school students. This was just updating the reimbursement, must not be paid more than 250 miles per week. So that was a big change with policy 707. 708 of non-public school students, they added the word must throughout, that it's now must instead of may. So they just changed some language to now it's a must. And the last one, student transportation safety policy. The changes were talking about the new laws where schools have to talk about bike safety and when they're walking to and from school. And both our kindergarten through 8th grade classes go through that. So it was just updating the bike safety laws.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the 11 policies?
Policy 402, do we have a contact person?
I added that after, yes, I'm the contact person
Okay.
for that.
Thank you.
Policy 616, the comprehensive achievement in civic readiness, what does that look like in the district?
So that's historically been our world's best workforce, which the board approves in December. The board will approve this in December as well. The due dates haven't changed. Next month, I will bring you a draft of what that looks like. We have to set some goals on reading, math, social emotional learning, the admin team kind of comes up with that. I will bring a first read of that plan in November, and then the board has to approve it by December 15th. So you will see a lot of information on that in the next 2 months.
Policy 620, under 4A, it says insert number. Is it?
We let them come with, if they have credits in another public school, we transfer them all over if they have it, the best we can. You know, some schools, like I'll use us, we have driver's ed as one of our requirements, some other schools not. We would just count that towards one of their electives that we have here. So we don't cap it at a number. We transcribe it, and if we don't require that class, we put it in as one of their electives.
Does anybody have any objections to approving all 11 policies at once? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the 11 policies that have been presented and explain change.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is Jake Pry. Does anybody have any additions to Jake Pry? If not, then we'll go on to mental health, trauma, and ACEs.
Just some, excuse me, especially as you hear Green present and our counselors present some common things that we talked about in regards to mental health and ACEs. So just some information that's pulled on what some of our kids are dealing with. Thought this, if there were questions, this would be a good meeting, especially with Green here. If you had any questions about how we kind of work with our students who maybe have faced some trauma or have some of these adverse childhood experiences. Are there any questions that Corrine or I could answer or wonders that you have?
So on there was listed a lot of different trainings that you've had.
Mhm.
With some of them, are these something that happens yearly or?
Rachel's challenge happens yearly. We do restorative. That's typically we have our 10th graders go through Rachel's challenge. It's an all-day experience where they kind of learn about each other, themselves, bullying, and kind of hopefully how to pay that forward and carry on those good deeds. So it's not just a one-day thing. Kid Whisper, I'll jump to the bottom of that. That is what we brought in new this year. We hope to bring that back again next year. The mandated reporting we do yearly. The national dropout we've done, probably not yearly, but we've done a handful of times in this district. So not all of them are yearly. These are just things that we've brought to the staff and students. But not all of them happen yearly.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, we're gonna move on to the levy.
I have two links. The first one is our general levies. And most of these numbers, if you had a chance to go through them, including the aid, for many of them have gone down. And the biggest reason that they're going down is because of our enrollment. When our enrollment goes down, it affects almost every area of the levy one way or the other. So these are ones we want to watch, especially those that have aid attached. We don't want to lose the state aid as we're setting our levies going forward. Or if we're talking about under levying, we want to look at the aid as well. And this is something that Ehlers will help me with as I present ideas to you in the next month or two, and then for final approval in December. At the bottom of that first link, I have kind of what each of those areas mean and what they look like as far as what programming it's for or what kind of students, what area of students that may fund specifically. But are there any questions on any of these areas or anything you'd like me to explore on our general levies? Again, just as I was doing research, most of these, if they've gone down, it's tied to our enrollment. We get so much in these areas per enrollment, per pupil. And that's why some of these are going down from last year. Otherwise,
One, Brian.
go ahead.
The Hinckley-Finlayson addition lease, it says it's for the gym.
Yep.
I was thinking it was for the walking track.
No, the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
It wasn't separate?
No,
Okay,
no, that's that whole room.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
So that section below there, that's all the true levies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. The other link is the community education and debt service. These are up a little bit compared to last year at this time. A lot of it's because of some of the adjustments that have come in as the state kind of corrects. And again, probably a good part of the corrections and adjustments are due to enrollment. Sometimes we do see extra money when our enrollment does go down. They try to not make it quite so painful for the school districts, so you don't lose all that revenue at once. But these ones are generally up compared to last year at this point. And then you can see the adjustments from the last few levies that we anticipate receiving compared to last year. And then again, like the last link, there are some definitions of what these are and kind of how it affects our students. So any questions on the community education and debt service levies? Otherwise, my plan, I will keep you updated. We'll do another run through some of these in November. Ehlers will again come to our truth and taxation meeting in December to help, because they're way smarter at this than I am, and they'll be able to answer specific questions much better if you have them, but they'll come. It's part of our truth and taxation, setting our final levy. We anticipate mailers going out to Pine County residents middle of November. Once I hear more about that, as far as it affects their houses and their properties, we anticipate those going out right around the 15th of November to the community.
One thing I will say is I am concerned about the levy. I did just see that Pine County, they're looking at about a 3% increase too. So, people are gonna probably get hit hard this year. It's not just, our levy, the county levies, but with our state budget, the state budget is not looking good. There's looking like there's gonna be a deficit there. And, again, potential increases, and obviously we don't want the cost of living and everything. So I am concerned about that. So if there's potential to help out community and maybe dip into the fund balance, because we do have a pretty significant fund balance. I know we're short students, but I am concerned about maxing that levy. I was gonna run some statistical data, but due to some unexpected things today, I wasn't able to. But I did do I did pull up some deed information, and in 2020, they just had, and it was information from 2021. That the median household is 74,886, but 33% of the Pine County residents are 55,000 a year. And then you have about 33 that are above 100. So there's that gap in between, and it's just costing, people are feeling it.
But we'll see usually there's three different
Yeah.
options for the.
Historically, both Mr. Prater and myself have given the board 3 options, 2 of which usually are under levying in some area. If the board wants to see more than 3, I could certainly do, we have a few months before that. But if you'd like to see more than 3 options, I can certainly do that. But usually 2 of those options are an under levy option.
Next up are the first read. There's 3 policies for next, November meeting. One of them is policy 205, the meeting, policy 214, out-of-state travel board members, and policy 215, board member orientation. Does anybody have any questions right now regarding those 3 policies?
These ones aren't state required, these are just ours that have not been updated in some time, so we're down to our policies, not state required ones that we have to update.
All right, then we will move on to meet and confer.
I moved up meet and confer a month early this year. I'd like to do this quarterly if HFPA would like to do that, just to keep communication more often, more consistent, and that way if there are any concerns, we can address that sooner. So appreciate Mr. Richter, Mr. Ranger, and Mr. Lick meeting a month early. I know it's busy as still first part of the school year, and I think we were just coming off homecoming, or maybe it was even homecoming week. So appreciate that, but I wanted to just, if there are things happening, wanted to know that a little bit sooner than we've done years past. So we talked about a few things. We are seeing a substitute shortage, some days harder than other days, at both the high school and elementary. So we discussed possibilities of looking at an MOU for teachers to earn some personal time if they sub up to 7 times. We talked about student behaviors as they are starting to increase a little bit at the high school, which does happen every year. But again, this was coming probably the week after homecoming, and naturally we see those behaviors, but we want to make sure that we're addressing and staying on top of that, so we don't see some of the things that we've seen in the last few years. We always discuss school climate, I believe, and I don't want to speak, well, I am kind of speaking for them, but the feeling I had was that certainly there are always things we can work on, but the climate among staff feels positive. It's been a successful start of the school year. One thing, and I know Mr. Lattimore and I have talked about this too, but one thing that was brought up was talking about the number of study halls, especially our juniors and seniors are taking in our work-based learning program. Just the feeling is we'd like to see our kids more in some of our elective classes, in school a little bit more, maybe not in the senior lounge as often. So, and I know Mr. Lattimore has talked to me privately about that too. We also talked about ways to get professional development for coaches, and I believe this was at our PD committee meeting today, which if you remember those coming out of negotiations last year, if a coach has professional development request, they can bring it to the PD committee. I know that happened today with a couple of our coaches. We also discussed how I'm looking to do things a little bit different with classroom budgets for the 25-26 school year. To have more communication with the teachers so they know what's approved, what's not, but also so if we do need to get to a cutting part, they have some say in that, which means we need to be a little bit ahead of the game. We're not making these final cuts in June when the teachers are on vacation already. And I'd just like to do it a little bit different. Maybe we start and look at taking an average. I'll use Mr. Richter since I'm looking at him. Take an average of Mr. Richter's department budget and kind of set that as a starting point. Not that it can't go higher or lower, but if the teacher kind of knows the dollar amount they're going to get, it might be easier for them to program and fit under that. Instead of, hey, we say it's not a wish list, but the teachers may budget for something really cool. And then as we get to the budget cutting part, we may say, well, that, we might cut part of it, but maybe it tied in with a different part of their budget where, I'm not an art teacher. I don't know, maybe Mr. Richter budgeted for this part to go with that part. I don't know that. I'm just looking at dollars and cents. So we want to clean up the communication. And I'm looking at maybe just starting with a different kind of process instead of a wish list per se. Here's a budget. You make it fit with the needs of your classroom. And then we discussed the REDACT MOU, which is coming up later in the agenda. The state is requiring us to do that in order for the district to pay the teachers, the new teachers who are doing REDACT. So our new teachers this year are our VPK teachers. We'll talk about the REDACT MOU a little bit further down in the agenda. But my feeling was it was very positive. I appreciated the 3 who came and talked with me. I feel Eric for sure, especially because I'm in the high school the most. We have that open communication and can talk through things. But with Mr. Lick and Mr. Ranger, I feel like it was very positive, and the communication is very good from my perspective.
Mr. Richter, would you like to add anything? Disagree?
No. Yeah, good, nailed it.
Does anybody have any questions, discussion regarding meet and confer? If not, we're going to move on to resolution of donated funds.
Our first donated fund comes from the Pine City Men's Lion Club. They're donating money for life jackets and school supplies. They donated $1,000. We're looking for approval to accept that donation.
Is there a motion to accept the donated funds?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is the donated funds.
Our second one is from Paul Welch, who's donating $50 to help with district costs for the community education trip that's coming up to the word I can't pronounce. Thank you. So looking for approval to accept the donation of $50.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on how Brian can't say Arboretum?
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Ryan, I think you need to go on that trip.
I think so.
No, it's good too.
I've heard it so many times. Seriously.
The dictionary phonics.
Thank you.
Next up is another donated.
Our third donated fund comes from the Hinckley-Lions, and they donated funds to help with the angling field trip that happened, and they donated $500. So looking for approval to accept $500 from the Hinckley-Lions.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And the last.
The last is from donor Jensen Backhoe. They're donating $200 to help with any cost in community education. So looking for approval of accepting this $200.
I make the motion.
There's a second.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is the READ MOU.
So the state's requiring districts for teachers who hadn't started letters training last year to have an MOU between the district and their teachers union in order for us to pay our VPK teachers who have started READ training this year. So the state, MSBA, and Ed Minnesota helped draft this, and then I worked with Mr. Richter and HFEA. So this is just spelling out how and when and how much we'll pay our VPK teachers. You can see the stipend is $1,200. That's taking the number of hours required for the training multiplied by the curriculum rate of pay. So that's where the $1,200 came from. And then it just goes through details how teachers can receive that stipend at the end of the training. So looking for approval so we can pay our VPK teachers who have just started letters training.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is the reschedule of the November school board meeting.
So our November meeting falls on Veterans Day, which is also Deer Day, but Veterans Day is the important part, and we're not allowed to have a school board meeting on Veterans Day. So looking to reschedule our November meeting. These don't have to be the 3 dates, but the 3 dates I threw out were November 1st, November 12th, or November 18th.
Meet 4th.
What's that?
November 4th.
What did I say? No, it's November 4th, November 12th, or November 18th. If those 3 dates don't work, we can certainly look at others. The only thing I was asked to look is if we had to have the meeting by a certain time of the month. There is no law on that, and we don't have a policy on that. So I'll throw out, do any of those 3 dates work?
November 12th is that Tuesday right after. That date would not work for me because I have a SCRED meeting that evening, but the other 2 dates I don't have.
Yeah, I'm available. Was it the 18th?
I'm good. How many are Mondays? Any of these Mondays?
The 4th and the 18th are Mondays.
So either one of those would be fine for me.
What did you say, Janelle? They will work?
Same day, 4th or 18th, I'm okay with.
Did Toby or?
Toby or Dave has not responded to me behind the scenes, no.
Is there anything in the November board meeting if we waited till November 18th? Like, that seems a long ways out
I started
to me.
just looking at it. The biggest part would be, there's not a lot of time if the board wants me to do specific, more detailed research in the levy. There wouldn't be a lot of time between the 18th and then the 11th or 9th of December, whenever that is. Otherwise, right now, there's not a lot of major things that have to be approved. We do start talking about the calendar for next year, but the levy part would be the biggest thing, just to give me time. But then in reverse, I don't know that a lot of the levy will have changed by November 4th. So I may not have a lot of new information either. Kind of hit or miss.
Do you think you have more information by the 18th?
It'll be closer to what, yes, it'll be closer to at least what the state numbers are, will be closer to final. Yeah, I mean, it should be final by the 18th unless there are some errors that we catch, but the state should be done by that 18th time with, as they're tweaking based on their numbers.
So there may not be as many changes, maybe?
The 18th is fine with me.
You gotta take a vote, yeah.
Yeah, so, yes. I will make the motion for the November board meeting to be November 18th. So I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed?
So,
Yeah.
so it's 7 to 8.
Good question. You still wanna go at 7 in Hinckley?
Okay.
Okay. I will start. Did you guys vote?
Yeah.
Oh, I will start communicating that tomorrow.
Are there any, next up is Minnesota State High School League resolution.
Looking for approval yearly that we do this with the Minnesota State High School League Form A, Form B. Form A, by applying for this, it would allow us to possibly receive additional funding to help with students who cannot afford sports. And by applying for Form B, we may be able to purchase more AEDs and or potentially offer leadership training for both athletes and coaches. So looking for approval to approve both Form A and Form B, Minnesota State High School League resolution.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is the parking lot with the Baptist Church.
Pastor Owens has brought me this proposed agreement from Faith Baptist Church. We can go through it detail by detail, but the biggest thing that they are looking for is currently they pay for transportation for early release for our students to go to their church on Wednesdays, but they would exchange that instead of them paying us, they give us use of their parking lot during softball games. I'm sure I didn't get to as many softball games, but I know, especially if it's wet, we have that parent turnaround, but that doesn't hold all the parking. So being a good neighbor, I think it'd be good to, I'm recommending approval of this to not charge Faith Baptist Church for transportation in exchange for using their parking lot for softball events.
My only concern is number 4, it states it's a school bus and a driver. Is there any way we can make it so it's, if there's not many kids, it could either be a type 3 or somebody could walk them over there?
How many students?
I don't know that. I don't think it's a lot either. Do you, Ms. Schoberg, do you know how many kids from Hinckley Elementary go to Faith? I'm sorry, put me on the spot.
No, is that the one that they go to after school each day?
That 1 o'clock on Wednesdays they go.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't think it would be very many.
Which guess I am.
Two buses, or what? Wasn't there two buses, like one to one place, one to the other?
One
Yeah.
is to go to St. Peter.
Yep, yep.
And then, no. St. Paul.
Yeah.
You haven't put a cost in.
They paid us last year $450, so it's not a lot. And the biggest reason it's that high is because we have a minimum for our driver. When they do a route, even if it's that close.
I would be curious to see if we could get, a staff member to maybe walk them over, because it's not a far distance, it's right across the grass.
And I guess I don't have an issue with the bus if the weather's bad or whatever, but I don't like that it says a school bus. There's no
I think I could ask them to change it, just will provide transportation.
transportation,
Yeah.
not,
So it doesn't have.
not necessarily a vehicle.
I agree too.
So,
So can I make that motion with
Change.
that change?
yes, please. Is there a second?
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is the end of our agenda, adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
There's a second. And second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?